most people will never reach their full potential, not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence, and not because the world is against them. The real reason is much harder to accept. Most people spend their lives running from the very thing that could change them: discomfort. Every great transformation begins with discomfort. Every breakthrough begins with uncertainty. Every success story begins with a period where nothing seems to be working. But most people never stay in that phase long enough. The moment things become difficult, they retreat. The moment doubt appears, they stop. The moment failure arrives, they convince themselves they were never meant for more. And that's why their lives remain the same. The truth is, your future is being shaped by the decisions you make when nobody is watching. Not when you're motivated, not when you're inspired, but when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when nothing is happening, because that's where character is built. Most people believe success comes from big moments, a life-changing opportunity, a lucky break, a single decision that changes everything. But that's not how reality works. Reality changes through repetition. The person who becomes extraordinary isn't usually the most gifted person in the room. It's the person who keeps showing up long after everyone else has disappeared. Think about it. Every day, people make promises to themselves. They say they'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll wake up earlier. Tomorrow they'll work harder. Tomorrow they'll stop wasting time. Tomorrow they'll finally become the person they've always wanted to be. But tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the world, because tomorrow feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like progress. But most of the time, tomorrow is simply another way of saying never. The people who change their lives understand something different. They understand that action creates clarity, not the other way around. Most people wait until they feel confident before they act. Winners act before they feel confident. Most people wait until fear disappears. Winners move while fear is still present. Most people wait until the path becomes obvious. Winners create the path by walking it, and that's why their lives look different. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is information. Fear often points directly toward growth. The things that scare you the most frequently contain the opportunities you've been looking for. But society teaches people to avoid fear, to seek comfort, to avoid risk. And while that sounds intelligent, it creates something dangerous. A life that feels secure on the outside, but empty on the inside. Because deep down, people know when they're capable of more. They know when they're settling. They know when they're hiding behind excuses. And that awareness slowly becomes regret. Regret doesn't arrive overnight. It builds quietly, one missed opportunity at a time, one excuse at a time, one delayed decision at a time, until eventually a person looks back and realizes they spent years preparing to live instead of actually living. That's why discipline is so important. Not because discipline feels good. It doesn't. Most days discipline feels boring. It feels repetitive. It feels invisible. But discipline allows you to act independently of your emotions. And that's a superpower. Because emotions change constantly. Some mornings you'll feel motivated. Some mornings you'll feel hopeless. Some days you'll feel unstoppable. Other days you'll doubt everything. If your actions depend on your emotions, your progress will always be unstable. But discipline creates consistency, and consistency changes lives. This is one of the biggest lessons successful people understand. They don't expect themselves to feel inspired every day. They expect themselves to act anyway. That's why they keep moving while others stop. That's why they keep growing while others remain stuck. And that's why their results eventually look extraordinary. Not because they worked harder for one day, because they worked consistently for years. Most people underestimate the power of time. They want immediate results, immediate success, immediate recognition, immediate rewards. But nature doesn't work that way. A tree doesn't grow overnight. A muscle doesn't develop overnight. A business doesn't succeed overnight. A powerful mind doesn't develop overnight. Everything meaningful requires time, and time rewards patience. Unfortunately, patience is becoming rare. People live in a world of instant gratification. Everything is immediate. Entertainment is immediate. Information is immediate. Pleasure is immediate. As a result, people begin expecting success to be immediate too. When it isn't, they quit. But the people who win understand something different. They understand that the process is the reward. Every difficult day makes them stronger. Every setback teaches them something valuable. Every failure provides information. While others see obstacles, they see training, and that perspective changes everything. Because life will test everyone. No one escapes difficulty. No one escapes setbacks. No one escapes failure. The only question is how you respond when those moments arrive. Do you interpret failure as proof that you're not good enough? Or do you interpret failure as proof that you're trying something difficult? That single choice determines the direction of your life. The people who reach their potential aren't fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make decisions for them. They aren't lucky. They simply stay in the game longer. They aren't perfect. They simply recover faster when they make mistakes. And over time, those small differences become enormous. A small improvement repeated every day becomes a completely different life. That's what most people fail to understand. Success rarely arrives as a giant leap. It usually arrives as thousands of small victories nobody notices. A better decision, a better habit, a better response, a better use of time, tiny actions, repeated consistently, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. And that's the moment people call you lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. What they're seeing is the visible result of years of invisible effort, and the people who understand this gain a massive advantage. Because they stop chasing shortcuts, they stop looking for secrets, they stop searching for magic solutions. Instead, they focus on becoming stronger, smarter, more disciplined, more resilient, and eventually, reality has no choice but to respond, because the world rewards value, it rewards persistence. It rewards people who continue moving when everyone else stops. The question is not whether you have potential. You do. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price required to discover it. Because potential means nothing without action. Dreams mean nothing without action. Knowledge means nothing without action. And the gap between the life you have and the life you want is almost always filled with action. The kind of action most people avoid. The kind of action that feels uncomfortable. The kind of action that requires courage. The kind of action that forces you to become someone new. And that's where your future is waiting, not in comfort, not in certainty, not in tomorrow, but in the decision you make today to keep moving forward. Most people spend their entire lives believing that one day they will become disciplined, one day they'll become focused, one day they'll finally stop procrastinating, one day they'll unlock the version of themselves they've always imagined. But that day never arrives, because discipline is not something you find, it's something you build. And that's where most people get trapped. They think successful people wake up feeling different. They imagine that high achievers possess some hidden source of motivation that ordinary people don't have. But that's an illusion. The truth is much simpler. Successful people often feel the same fear, the same doubt, the same uncertainty. The difference is what they do next. Most people listen to their feelings. High performers listen to their goals. And those two paths lead to completely different lives. Imagine two people standing in the same situation. Both are tired. Both are discouraged. Both want to quit. The first person says, "I don't feel like doing it today." The second person says, "It doesn't matter how I feel." One follows emotion. The other follows commitment. A year later, their lives no longer look the same. That's how success is built, not through giant decisions, but through small, consistent actions. Success is built on But through small moments, most people ignore. Every day your future asks a question. Will you do what is easy? Or will you do what is necessary? And your answer shapes who you become. The scary part is that nobody notices these moments while they're happening. Nobody applauds when you wake up early. Nobody celebrates when you choose discipline over distraction. Nobody rewards you immediately for making the right choice, which is why most people stop. They want proof before they continue. But growth doesn't work like that. Growth is invisible before it becomes obvious. For a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. You work, you learn, you improve, and the results barely seem to move. That's where most people quit. Right before the breakthrough, right before the momentum, right before all those small efforts begin to compound. The world is full of people who were closer than they realized, but they stopped too soon because they mistook slow progress for no progress. And that's a dangerous mistake, because slow progress is still progress. A person who improves 1% every day becomes unrecognizable over time. Not because of talent, not because of luck, because consistency creates transformation. This is why patience is a competitive advantage. Most people cannot stay committed long enough to see extraordinary results. They want immediate proof, immediate success, immediate rewards. But the people who win understand a deeper truth. The biggest rewards usually arrive after the longest periods of uncertainty. When Elon Musk was building Tesla, there were years when people thought the company would fail. When SpaceX experienced repeated rocket failures, many believed the mission was impossible. But success doesn't belong to the person who never struggles. It belongs to the person who keeps moving during the struggle. That's what separates dreamers from builders. Dreamers imagine, builders execute. Dreamers wait, builders start. Dreamers focus on possibilities. Builders focus on actions, and action changes everything, because action creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates bigger action. And that cycle becomes unstoppable. Unfortunately, most people live in the opposite cycle. They hesitate. That hesitation creates doubt. Doubt creates fear. Fear creates more hesitation. And eventually, they become trapped inside their own mind. Overthinking is one of the biggest killers of potential, not because thinking is bad, but because excessive thinking often becomes a substitute for action. People spend months planning, months researching, months preparing, while never actually beginning. They convince themselves they're being productive, but preparation without execution is just another form of procrastination. At some point, you must move. At some point, you must take the risk. At some point, you must leave the safety of certainty behind. Because certainty is expensive. It costs opportunities. It costs growth. It costs experiences that could have changed your life. And many people don't realize what they've lost until years later. One day they wake up and wonder where the time went. They wonder why their dreams still look exactly the same. They wonder why nothing changed. But life was changing every day, just not in the direction they wanted. Because every day you either move closer to your goals or further away from them. There is no neutral, there is no standing still. You are always becoming something. The question is whether you're becoming someone stronger or someone weaker, someone more disciplined or more distracted, someone more courageous or more fearful. Every habit is casting a vote for the person you'll become. That's why habits matter so much. Your future isn't created by your biggest decisions. It's created by your daily behaviors. The things you repeatedly do become your identity. If you repeatedly quit, quitting becomes part of who you are. If you repeatedly push forward, resilience becomes part of who you are. And identity is powerful, because people naturally act in alignment with who they believe they are. That's why real transformation starts internally. Before you change your life, you must change your standards. You must stop asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" and start asking, What kind of person do I want to become? Because the answer to that question changes everything. A person who wants greatness cannot live like everyone else. A person who wants extraordinary results cannot follow ordinary habits. A person who wants freedom cannot remain addicted to comfort. Sooner or later, reality demands a choice: comfort or growth, entertainment or purpose, excuses or responsibility. And every day you make that choice, whether you realize it or not. The people who reach their potential are not superhuman. They simply make the right choice more often, not perfectly, not every time, just more consistently. And over years, consistency becomes power. Power becomes achievement. Achievement becomes a completely different life. The tragedy is that most people never discover what they're truly capable of, not because they couldn't, but because they stopped too early. They surrendered to doubt. They surrendered to fear. They surrendered to comfort. And comfort always demands a price. At first, the price seems small: a missed opportunity, a delayed decision, a postponed dream. But over time, that price becomes enormous, because every year spent avoiding growth is a year you'll never get back. And that's why your future depends on what you do today, not next week, not next month, not when conditions become perfect. Today, because action today creates opportunity tomorrow, and opportunity creates the future. The version of yourself you're trying to become already exists as a possibility. The only question is whether you'll do the work required to meet that person. The most powerful realization you'll ever have is this: Rome body is coming to save you. Not because people don't care, not because the world is cruel, but because your life has always been your responsibility. The moment you truly understand that, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop blaming. You stop hoping that one day circumstances will magically improve. And you start building, because builders understand something that victims never will. The future is created, not found. Every successful person eventually reaches a point where excuses lose their power, a point where they realize that explaining failure changes nothing, a point where they understand that reality only responds to action. That's the moment their lives begin to transform. Most people want extraordinary results, but very few people are willing to live in an extraordinary way. They want confidence without challenges, successes without sacrifice, growth without discomfort. But life doesn't work like that. Everything valuable requires a price. Strength requires struggle. Discipline requires sacrifice. Achievement requires patience. And freedom requires responsibility. There is no shortcut around those truths. The sooner you accept them, the faster your life changes. One of the biggest lies people tell themselves is, I have time. Maybe, maybe not. The truth is that none of us know how much time we have. Years disappear faster than people expect. Months become weeks. Weeks become days. And before they realize it, another year is gone. That's why urgency matters. Not panic, not stress, urgency. The understanding that your life is happening right now. Not someday, not eventually, not when conditions improve. Now, every day you delay becoming who you're capable of being is a day you'll never get back. And that's why your decisions matter. Every choice compounds, every habit compounds, every action compounds, whether you're aware of it or not. The person you become 5 years from now is being shaped by what you repeatedly do today. That's why small actions are never truly small. A single workout seems insignificant. A single book seems insignificant. A single hour of focused work seems insignificant. But repeated enough times, those small actions become a completely different life. People often underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years because they're too focused on what they can accomplish in 10 days. Real growth is slow. Real growth is quiet. Real growth often feels invisible until suddenly it isn't. Then people look at your success and call it luck. They call it talent. They call it natural ability, because they didn't see the years behind it. They didn't see the mornings when you wanted to quit, The nights when you doubted yourself, the moments when nobody believed in you, the sacrifices nobody applauded, the discipline nobody noticed. They only see the result, never the process. But the process is everything, because the process creates the person, and the person creates the results. That's why your biggest goal shouldn't be success. It should be transformation. Become the type of person who can handle success. Become the type of person who can handle pressure. Become the type of person who can continue moving forward when life becomes difficult. Because life will become difficult. Challenges are guaranteed. Failure is guaranteed. Setbacks are guaranteed. But growth is also guaranteed if you refuse to quit. That's the difference. Not intelligence, not luck, not talent, but Vincent's. The willingness to continue when progress is invisible. The willingness to continue when motivation disappears. The willingness to continue when nobody is watching. That is where greatness is built. Most people never discover their limits, not because they reach them, because they stop long before they get there. They mistake discomfort for limitation. They mistake fear for impossibility. They mistake temporary failure for permanent defeat. And as a result, they never discover how strong they actually are. But you are stronger than you think, more capable than you think, more resilient than you think. The evidence is already in your life. You've survived difficult moments before. You've overcome challenges before. You've handled problems you once thought would break you, and you're still here. That means there's more inside you than you've been using. The question is whether you're willing to access it, whether you're willing to demand more from yourself, whether you're willing to stop negotiating with your potential. Because every day you delay that decision, your future waits, and your future will continue waiting until one day it won't. One day the opportunities will disappear. One day the time will be gone. One day the choices will become smaller. And that's why today matters. Today is where everything begins. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. Today, the version of yourself you admire is not built in the future. That version is built through the actions you take right now, through the habits you build right now, through the standards you set right now. Every great life begins with a simple decision. A decision to stop living below your potential. A decision to stop making excuses. A decision to stop waiting. And a decision to become the person you were capable of being all along. Because the truth is, your potential has never been the problem. Your circumstances have never been the biggest obstacle. Your past has never been the final verdict. The real battle has always been between the person you are today and the person you could become. And every day that battle continues, every day you choose comfort or growth, fear or courage, excuses or responsibility, average or extraordinary. The choice has always been yours, and it still is. So years from now, when you look back at this moment, make sure it wasn't the day you decided to wait. Make sure it was the day you decided to begin, because your future is watching, and it is waiting to see what you do next.